Hi gang, welcome back to the Ask the Ard podcast. If this is the first time that you are listening to us, it would be awesome if you would subscribe to us. Just click the little button wherever it is and you'll be able to keep up on all things tree and ecology when it comes to planning applications and tree and ecology management in the UK. In this episode, I'm going to give you a peek behind the curtain to the day in the life of one of our ecologists and exactly what goes into producing your report. So if that sounds like something that you would be interested in, then stick around and stay tuned. Hi gang, welcome back to the Ask the Ard podcast, where today I'm going to give you a little peek behind the curtain, if you like, at the life of one of our ecologists here at Rover, who this time of year are really feeling it. They're utterly exhausted as we come to the end of the survey season. Lots of late nights, lots of early mornings, lots of dealing with queries and questions from local planning authorities, colleagues, clients, etc. So most people tend to think that they spend their days swinging around up trees, spotting bats and hugging oak trees. But, you know, the truth is that it's a lot less glamorous than that. But first, this. Hi folks, it's time for You Couldn't Plan It, the feature where me and my team have scoured the internet for stupid, silly and downright infuriating planning related facts. Let's go. So, this week in You Couldn't Plan It, we have got one from London. And as we know, in London, there are lots of chimney pots, lots of houses, lots of property all over the place. And those properties cost an absolute fortune to buy and run, particularly properties in the Chelsea area. And this particular news story, unfortunately, is from the Daily Mail, but so I will paraphrase bits of it to make sure we cut out all the nonsense. But the headline is: wealthy neighbours go to war with 100 mil tech tycoon after his plans for a vanity mega basement in Chelsea. And this is something that we see quite a lot. So what is a vanity mega basement? Well, a lot of these properties in London, they can't be extended above ground due to various different things like, you know, conservation areas and covenants and all sorts of things. So what they tend to do is they go down, and our arboricultural consultants get involved in these projects sometimes because there's a lot of really significant protected trees in London. We need to make sure that they are protected through development. So this particular article says that locals are slinging mud at a tech entrepreneur worth 100 million over his vanity project plans to build a mega basement with health spa and entertainment space. Peter Dubbins wants to build a 7,760 square foot underground personal leisure complex, taking up almost 50% of the area under his garden, and it's going to take up to 2 years to complete. He wants to build a gigantic new floor for his £10 million house, including therapy room, bar, luxury cinema, wine cellar, a couple of saunas, a plunge pool, a massage room, and a top-of-the-range golf simulator. I was with him right up to golf simulator. The controversial planning application was unearthed by the local newspaper, the Chelsea Citizen, which covers the area, and furious locals have complained to Kensington and Chelsea Council, predicting the project will cause unending havoc and pollution. And one has said this is nothing more than one man's appalling vanity project. So that sounds a bit like NIMBYism and jealousy there. However, my point here is to try and highlight that these things are possible, these things are going on, and what the challenges may well be. Most of the commentary on this says that the development at this scale is entirely wrong for the area and does nothing for the public good. And the article goes on to show the red line boundary from the planning application, and it's a fairly sizable extension that they are looking at. It seems that most people are concerned around the construction traffic management plan, which envisages up to 10 concrete mixers and 10 skip lorries a week, averaging one every 2 hours with a 40-minute maximum dwell time for a period of many months. In other words, hundreds of vehicles will be needed to drive up a road which is too narrow to take them. So there we go. What do you make of that one? Let me know in the comments. This guy, incidentally, made his money out of hyper-coloured T-shirts, apparently, that changed colour depending on body temperature. So that was a thing back in the 1990s. He must have done something else since then, I would have thought. He started his career as a chauffeur and aide to billionaire investor Joe Lewis, who owns Tottenham Hotspur Football Club. And in 2002, he set up Oakley Capital. So I would imagine he's made his money in stocks and shares and all that kind of good stuff. But yeah, so these schemes are fairly common in London, and there's not too many concerns from an ecological perspective, because it's quite often just vegetated garden that is affected. But there is a lot of things to consider when it comes to trees, both preserving them and making sure they're not destabilised and all that kind of good stuff as well. So basement projects are totally a thing. So let's go back to today's episode, where we're going to be talking about kind of the day in the life of one of our ecologists, really, just to give you a peek behind the scenes so you get a bit of an understanding of what is involved. So ecologists, they're not all out in the countryside in the middle of nowhere all the time. They're quite often office-based for a percentage of the week. So our ecologists split their time between site-based work and office work, and they run like a default diary to split everything up. So quite often, elements of the desktop work are going to be around emailing customers backwards and forwards. We use a specific platform for that. We're going to be chasing people for missing information, making sure that we've got the right AutoCAD files and things like that we need before we go to site, particularly when it comes to biodiversity net gain. It's absolutely essential that we have good plans. So that's a takeaway. Make sure that you're sending in good plans to your chosen consultancy. When they're out on site, they're conducting tree surveys, preliminary bat roost assessments. They're dealing with contractors during clerk of works visits. There's obviously a lot of travel involved as well. Those based down in the southeast and the London area can spend a good 2 or 3 hours a day stuck in traffic, which is massively frustrating. They'll be dealing with sort of last minute issues and curved balls, because the reality is nature is not straightforward. They'll also be dealing with, the curveballs that come in. So there can quite often be some wild assumptions about these things. So a lot of people, we do everything we can to try and educate our customers around what the surveys are and what's involved with them. But there's quite often quite a lot of wild assumptions come in. We get lots of queries around developers wanting magic fixes, and a real one that pops up a lot is last minute planning conditions as well. So somebody starts work on site and then they realise that they've got a suite of planning conditions that need to be discharged, and I talk about that in one of our videos on our main YouTube channel. Then there's all the hidden work as well. I've said a lot over the years that sort of 30% of any commission is the site-based work, and sort of 70% of it goes on back in the office, actually writing the report and doing those desktop studies, making sure that everything is legally compliant, wrangling communications with local planning authorities and all that kind of good stuff as well. We occasionally come across the scenarios where we've almost given out too much information before we go to site. So we have had situations, thankfully not very often, where people have tried to totally sanitize their property before we've gone there. So that may be that the garden is cleared of any sort of vegetation before the survey's done, in the thinking that that will sort of downgrade or give the site a lower value. We've had situations where people have used expanding foam to fill cavities all around their roof space, to try and exclude bats, which is potentially a wildlife crime. So there's all sorts of weird things that they have to deal with as well. And the big one, I guess, that nobody really talks about as well is the sort of emotional side of things, because a lot of particularly ecologists and arboriculturists, but mostly ecologists, they got into this game because they want to really make a difference. So it can be very, very frustrating and difficult to deal with some of the situations that come up. They're always trying to balance, conservation values with pragmatic solutions at the end of the day. And the vast majority of them, they love what they do. They like solving these puzzles at the sort of intersection of ecology and planning. And a lot of this is obviously people management, people handling as well. So that is a little bit of an overview of what they get up to on a day-to-day basis. So before we wrap this one up, let's have a look at Panic Line. You've got the questions, the planning system's a nightmare. We have got the answers. Welcome to the Planning Permission Panic Line. Okay, so what have we got in front of us here? Let's try and find one that I haven't commented on already. Amira in Camden wants to know, can we submit a planning application and get the surveys done later, or do we need to front load everything up front? There is a degree of front loading. Amira has become more and more of a thing. It used to be quite often that people would submit their planning application and they'd see what the local authority would come back with, but I'd have you consider the possibility that is not a good way to approach this these days, because it takes so long quite often for the authorities to get back to you. So what I would suggest is that if you are going to submit a planning application, work with a good planning consultant always. They will help you work out exactly what it is that you need to make sure you've got to support your application. And from our perspective, we have a little thing that we say here: trees first, not last. If you've got trees on or adjacent to the red line boundary of your site, then I highly recommend getting a tree survey done to find out if there's any problems, any constraints before you build up those plans. From an ecology perspective as well, just making sure what's going on, making sure there's no ecological factors that are going to hamper that application or cause problems for that application. And finally, I guess the other one, you don't say whether this is a homeowner application or not. If it is, it's exempt from mandatory BNG, but the local authority, particularly Camden, I know them well, will want to see biodiversity enhancements in there as part of your application. So yeah, you need to make sure you get everything done and make that application as robust as you possibly can. Let me click this one off my list. So the next time someone thinks that ecology consultancy is just bird watching, remember that predominantly it is paperwork, problem solving, and massive people management in equal measure. So there we go, folks. I hope that has been useful, and I'll see you on the next one.